Yes, a win against the Dallas Mavericks on Sunday for the Phoenix Suns put them 2 games up on Golden State in the standings. Yes, it sent a message to the NBA, but it was a bigger win than just one game. It sent a message to the Mavs and reminded everybody that this Suns team is not worried about last spring. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get podcasts. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Tuesday. One day until the next game. Wherever you're finding the show, hit follow or subscribe. We'll be here tomorrow. We'll be here after the game. We'll be here after the next game. We're in your feed every single Monday through Friday. So if you're finding us for the first time or if you've never bothered to hit that button before, go ahead and do so. You will not regret it. Stay locked in with your team every single day. You can also follow along at Locked On PHX Suns over on Twitter. Get connected. Have some fun. Keep up to date with the show over there on Twitter. This team, this Suns team, is different for a lot of reasons. A lot has changed since the finals. A lot has changed since even they played Dallas in the second round last year. A lot has even changed for the Mavs since then, right? Very different set of circumstances and set of characters who played on Sunday afternoon in Dallas than the team that we've seen in the past. But it was fair. It still will be fair. And a lot of the chatter around this team has centered on doubting this team, this Suns team against that Mavs team. Whether it's the trash talk and the new, I don't know if you caught all this unwritten rules about who can trash talk and when and how. That had to do with prior history between these teams. A lot of goofy takes have centered on that, but it's going to stay there. It's going to be there for this Suns team. And so beating the Mavs the way that they did and winning the type of game that they did, coupled with the win on opening night against the Mavs, is sending a message that's bigger than just, we can win, we're good, we're serious, we're going to hit the ground running with Durant, whatever other things you could say. What it is doing, is that it is saying to the NBA that once again, Game 7 is not going to haunt us. We are still hungry. And if I'm the Suns, it's saying we should be taken seriously as the championship favorites, right? I want to dive into some specifics to explain what I mean. I jumped into the rabbit hole, the time machine, so you did not have to today, but this game against Dallas, and I said it a little bit yesterday, I recommend going and catching the recap show that I did with Brandon, if you've not already. But I mentioned this a little bit. These are the types of games that the Suns normally lose, right? This game was surprisingly high scoring. The Suns don't tend to play a ton of those like shootout types of games anyway, so that was a little different, but a lot of these things we've seen before, right? We have seen heavy free throw attempt games from the opposing team. We have seen efficient three-point shooting teams from the opposing team. We have seen these games that slow down, although this one, Kyrie helps really push the pace, and it ended up being high scoring. But we've seen games where things get really slowed down and bogged down and everything else, and all those ingredients have in the past made it hard on the Suns to succeed. All right. And they didn't get bogged down and dragged down and all of that with this game. And that in and of itself is just worth saying. Like, again, I dived into the rabbit hole. We have game 4 against the Mavs last year. You have the Suns cut the lead to 6 at one point in that fourth quarter. I went back and watched the highlights. I went back and looked at the play-by-play. Right after that, the Mavs go on what I believe was a 6-0 run or 7-0 run Dorian Finney-Smith makes a couple threes, Luka gets to the basket, and it's back to double digits. We obviously have games 4 and 5 with the Bucks in the finals where they come down to late turnovers in game 4, Chris Paul, and game 5, Devin Booker, where they just don't get those small little moments to go their way in these big spots. And I would say that's kind of the final other ingredient, right? It's these game flow things when it comes to the free throws and the points in the paint and the threes and pace of play and some of that stuff. I pointed out the Suns actually did not have high turnovers yesterday, which was another good sign. That has been a problem for them in the past, another way that they flipped the script. But that other part is late game execution, right? If they go up against star players on opposing teams in the past, those star players have been able to get the job done against them. Even go back, honestly, the doubleheader against New Orleans in November, I think it was, where Zion had that 360 dunk, and then you had Alvarado, and then you had Chris Paul fouling out with the leg kick and all that different stuff. Those heated games, even that was an example of what I'm talking about, right? Pelicans get to the free throw line. The foul trouble stuff goes their way. Zion makes the plays down the stretch. Very unguardable when he's going, and the Suns didn't have an answer. That stuff is all. I feel like in basketball, those plays are always going to go toward the best player, right? The team with the best player is going to get the luck of the draw in those moments. Now, with the Bucks, it was Drew Holiday, right, making the defensive plays and then getting assists to Middleton and to Antetokounmpo to close out the game. With the Mavs, I told you it was Finney-Smith hitting some of those shots, but again, that was driven by Doncic in transition and Doncic getting to the basket. Even the Drew steal in Game 5 obviously ends up with a lob to Giannis. Like, the greatest players, the best players in a series are going to have those moments go their way, and the Suns haven't been able to. And so it was impressive. On opening night, it was impressive to see the Suns beat the Mavs because it was a comeback and because it was everything else, but that moment still felt like the last series, right? Because it was very lopsided. It was in the first half, the Mavs went up not even double digits, like 20-something. And then, obviously, the Suns outscored them by even more than that to come back and end up winning the game. In this case, you add Kyrie to the mix, you add Durant to the mix, and it was a reminder that the Suns have the best player in that series with Durant. He made the fall-away leaner 14 feet, left side of the basket, the shot that decided the game. But some of these other little moments just went their way, right? And some of that is random, obviously. It's sports. We have to admit that a lot of what goes on is not exactly replicable. But to have a moment like that where so many of these things did not go their way from the game flow standpoint and get to a late game situation and have it work out for them, I think it's huge. And it's huge from a confidence standpoint. It's huge from a, putting it on film standpoint and kind of like proving it to yourself, even maybe more so than proving it to the league. But there is that external perspective. There is that external part of this of the Suns reinforcing, proving, showing the league again, hey, yes, that happened. We're not finished. We're not cooked. It's not over. We'll see if these teams play in the playoffs, if they have another chance to prove who's better and who's worse. But that felt big to me. The other part of this game that felt big and happened both on the court and with the trash talk that finished the game was the Booker versus Luka battle, the Suns versus Luka battle, really a 5-on-1 dynamic in a lot of ways. We'll get into how the Suns backed up the talk that Booker gave with their play and their scheme on the court next. First, today's show, guys, is brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat without a ton of fat and calories, you've got to try a Built Bar. With Built, healthy is actually tasty, and they're so delicious you won't realize just how good they are for you. What makes them so good is, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. And they come in delicious flavors on top of that. Churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. We don't know, even all these years later, how Built quite does it. But they do. Never going to cross 150 calories or 5 grams of sugar for the most part. And you are getting 15 to 20 grams of protein in each and every bar. And now, best part, delicious flavors, chocolate, healthy. You don't have to go far to get yours. You don't have to wait for an order in the mail. You can go to Walmart. You can go to Sam's Club. Get a box today. 4-bar boxes at Walmart in the pharmacy section. 13-bar box in that bulk section at your local Sam's Club. If you live in the Valley, tons of those stores everywhere. If you live anywhere, you're basically going to be able to find one of those. Built.com still there for you, or wander into a Walmart or Sam's Club and get a Built Bar today. Okay, by my count, the Suns attacked Luka 3 ways in this game. And I didn't even mention the fighting directly, the war of words that we saw to close out the game. But let's start on the court. Let's start schematically. Some of the clips that have been going around, whether it's Reddit or Twitter, among Suns fans online here on Monday, is the way in which the open threes that Josh Okogie took and missed, as well as the open threes that Ish Wainwright was able to make in his, I think Ish Wainwright, by the way, side note, played like the last 15, 16 minutes straight of this game. I don't think I realized that in the immediate aftermath when we went live on YouTube and you heard that show. But Ish Wainwright made those shots, right? And all the continuing, the thread that loops all of those together is they were all on Luka's side. But I think they took, Okogie took 8 and Ish took 5 threes. I believe, if I'm not wrong, all of 13 of those shots happened when Luka was guarding those players. Some of the time it was even on the strong side. Luka would be helping off. And there's a few ways that this made sense. One, it's something that I don't think they did enough of in last year's playoffs, where they were actually making Luka guard, right? Make him rotate, make him exert energy, make him close out and just run and consume, take up space defensively. But also in this game, in the first half, in the second quarter especially, he was limping. He was clearly sore or pulled something, feeling uncomfortable, and he was very visibly struggling to get up and down the court. So yeah, make that guy run. The Suns don't have the type of team necessarily where they are going to, try to post Luka up, although he's a sturdy guy, so that's probably not really the best way to do it. They don't really have players who are just going to straight up cook you off the bounce like Ja or De'Aaron Fox or something, so they're not going to do that. The way the Suns pick on you if you're a bad defender, sometimes, sure, and maybe with Durant even more so as we move forward, they'll have some times where they just straight up ISO you. But mostly they're going to make you rotate and play team defense. That's the way the Suns do this, right? That's the pigeon, in other words, that we've talked about so many times. And it wasn't just like, hey, let's make Luka go out there and put his arm up in the corner and try to block something. This was also, Okogie beat Luka off the closeout twice in the first quarter. So I think that got missed a little bit when we talk about Okogie missing his shots. There were a lot of times where Okogie was open. Maybe Luka did get there enough, and Okogie, not the best shooter ever. He's been very comfortable and confident lately, but he decided, no, I'm going to make this guy close out on me because I've earned that respect, and I'm going to beat him. Okogie fouled him once, and I believe beat him to the basket and just made a shot. Luka fouled Okogie once, and then the second time, I believe Okogie just beat him to the basket and got a score. Which brings us, that head-to-head battle brings us to the second way that the Suns attacked Luka in this game. Standing him up in the post, okay? And this was another thing that, they actually did blitz him and crowd his space on the perimeter quite a bit in this game. But the point that I really want to make actually revolved around them just not giving up the switch. And those were both things that I think they didn't do enough of trying to guard Luka last year. They felt so comfortable, it seemed like, in the playoffs last season, just giving him the switch that he wanted and banking on if he's taking a bunch of these difficult shots, if he's, dribbling the air out of the ball, then that's going to be to our favor. I don't think that ended up panning out, and the Suns were probably wrong to think that. In this case, they did not give the switches as easily, and they didn't allow him to get downhill and all that. But Okogie in the post did his job. He fouled him a couple times, sure. Luka did miss some very makeable shots. I believe Luka was 1 of 7 in the first quarter in this game, but he wasn't getting run over like other guys were last year, right? Whether it was Chris Paul, Cam Payne, Cam Johnson, all of those guys got completely exposed and just picked at, honestly, defensively in last year's playoffs. Mikal even too. Like, we can be honest, right? We can keep it 100 here. That's what happened. Okogie was better, and that's all you really need to be. You know, if you can get a 1 of 7 quarter from Luka Doncic, even when he's getting into the spaces and the spots he wants to, that's the type of quarter that can help you win a game. This is a great player. Kyrie had 30 points. This is not ever going to be easy. This is never going to be simple, walk in the park, nothing. I told you the minute before we even saw Durant, right? I told you this was still going to be a tough matchup, despite the fact that Reggie Bullock is not playing as well as he was last year. There's no more Dorian Finney-Smith, no more Jalen Brunson. They have no size. I told you this was going to be a tough matchup, and it was. But Okogie just being able to body up Luka, not fall down or get bowled over or any of that stuff, and defend and make things hard. Like, use your 6 fouls even, right? Like, I don't even care. That was a big difference maker. Yes, when Okogie was not out there, it was a lot of the same. The minute Terrence Ross checked in, Luka Doncic called for a screen, got the switch, and Ross fouled him on back-to-back possessions. Luka got 4 free throws, right? So that's going to happen. But buying these little advantages, these little moments, and doing it within the game plan is the way to win. It's going to be the way to make these differences happen, right? And lastly, they just didn't back down to his BS, right? And that was huge too. Like, I'm not gonna like sit here and say that the Suns should have been anything but standing up to him. I'm not here to advocate for the Suns being afraid of Luka Doncic. As much as, yes, he beat them last year, it's not like he's LeBron James or Michael Jordan or something. Even then, it's sports. You're not really supposed to back down to any opponent you face. If you lose that confidence, you're kind of screwed anyway. But it's Luka. It's not like, some legend. We don't need to overdo it, right? If there's anybody who should be backed down to in a Suns-Mavs game at this point in time, it's Kevin Durant. And so that was big, right? I think just sort of the reminder of, like, Luka post-game trying to make it about, let's not do that when you're up in games or whatever. It's like, I know, like, this is kind of a lame way to look at it, or not in the spirit of, like, the competitive juices that flow in a competitive game. But look, it took till game 7 also, right? Like, part of why Suns in 4 and the meme of that dude and the shirts and the everything was so funny and fun, and the meme is still out there and we all joke about it. It's because they wiped the floor with the Nuggets, right? It's like, if it's a hard-fought series, that, yeah, you embarrass them in game 7. But it's not like Luka beating the Suns every time. Like, it's goofy. It's goofy behavior. The Suns were right to match it, and it sets the precedent that, like, hey, this happened. We're not gonna allow it to define us, right? And so the last thing I want to say, and I know that this, maybe some of this kind of comes across a little bit as negative, of like, I'm picking nits or I'm doing whatever. I'm not going to be the person on this show or going forward the rest of the season that sits here and just chalks everything up to Kevin Durant, right? Whether it's me telling you in that last segment that this game mattered a little bit more than just a win, me telling you that they were able to attack Luka and come out on the other side with the victory, all this stuff, it's like, I don't want us to get caught in the loop of every single thing that happens. It's like, well, isn't it so great they have Kevin Durant? Doesn't that guy really sure change things? It's like, yeah, sure, that, of course. What do you want me to say? Yes, that happens. That helps immensely. That's going to be such a focal point of any conversation about this team. We're all just completely out of our minds excited to get to watch it. But these other things matter. These other things are real. The psychology of going up against Dallas, the psychology and momentum and execution to beat teams in these types of situations in a way they haven't been able to. The confidence and comfort and execution to attack somebody as good as Luka Doncic and commit to that and really do it and have it matter in a game. These things still matter, okay? Maybe I'm overreacting to somebody in the comments the other day after the Bulls game when I did a bonus show for you guys, and they were like, so negative. It's like, come on. This stuff matters. They're not like far and away, just roll it up. The championship is done. Send everybody their rings and let's put the banner up, do the parade, and everybody go home, have a vacation. That's not what this is, right? This is an unprecedented thing with 20 games to integrate a legendary player into a team that wants to win a title, and that's how I'm going to talk about it. And so that's 2 segments for you on my next day thoughts on Suns-Mavs. Let's get into the news here a little bit. Something I did not get to cover. I think it might have come out over the weekend, but a few days late to it. The Suns hired a new president and CEO of the team, and they replaced Jason Rowley. The first hire of the Mat Ishbia era comes more on the business side, but a little more basketball than we might have expected, so we'll dive into what that means in a second. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. As well as the NBA, it's also America's #1 sportsbook because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. And all you have to do is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app to cash in. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can bet on everything from the money line to point scores to threes drained. I have odds for Tuesday night's games. The Suns, of course, do not play. This one caught my attention. Golden State is favored by 5 points at Oklahoma City. The Thunder just got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander back. They are a feisty team. They are a young team. Steph is also back, but we know the Warriors are an awful road team. The Thunder are better than that line would suggest, and the Thunder are plus 164 on the money line. So I might just go ahead and slide right into that after I'm done recording here. You should maybe check that out. Or if you don't want to take my gambling advice, because that would be silly and I'm an idiot, great. Don't. Figure something else out for yourself. FanDuel even lets you combine your bets at a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL and the NBA. Closing out the show here, Jason. I've done this wrong multiple times, Googling the incorrect name, and now I'm telling you the incorrect name. It is Jason Bartelstein is going to be the new CEO of the Phoenix Suns. He is the son of Mark Bartelstein, who you might remember or know of as an NBA agent. So Jason has been making his way up in both business and basketball. It is Josh Bartelstein. I've screwed myself now. Josh Bartelstein has been making his way up in the Pistons organization on both the business side and the basketball side. I do still have the detail correct that he's Mark Bartelstein's son. Mark Bartelstein is one of the biggest agents in basketball. He runs Priority Sports. You've probably seen him in a Woj tweet or two. He is the agent for Bradley Beal, Michael Porter Jr., Gordon Hayward, on and on and on and on and on. Tons of players in the NBA. Tim Hardaway, Kevin Huerter, Bobby Portis, on and on. The other interesting thing about Josh Bartelstein is that he is only 33 years old. And that jumped out to me first and foremost. The agent's son thing is one thing. The basketball operations experience, rather than just being on the business side, jumped out to me. And then his age jumped out to me. So, I don't know. I guess if you're a Cardinals fan, right, there's been a lot of discussion about the coordinators being young, the head coach being young. I'm not of the opinion, especially in sports, that being young is necessarily a problem. But I do think the age and the inexperience and the nature of the experience that Bartelstein has come from being in the business side to becoming an assistant general manager with the Pistons, coupled with the fact that he doesn't bring this wealth of business management experience, that all combines to I don't want to say it tells me a few things, but here's what I make of it, all right? I think the fact that he has the experience on the basketball side tells me that he will be involved with the basketball, I guess, is the most basic way to put it. And if you listen to, like, I listen to the Dan Le Batard show a lot, and David Sampson, the former president of the Miami Marlins, comes on there once a week, if not more than that. And he's taught me a lot about the role and prominence of a team president, right? They sign off on all the money. They sign off on all the final decisions. And so inevitably, basketball stuff is going to cross their desk as well, right? So maybe you look at that and you say that's natural. I kind of look at that and I think Bartelstein will be in charge, quote unquote, of the business, but that is somebody who is going to have a voice in the basketball. I don't know anything about what he has, what his views are, what his method of operation is, anything to tell you if that's going to be a good or a bad thing. But if we keep, count of sort of the voices in the room in the basketball operations and basketball decision-making for the Suns, it seems like we just got another one. That's number one. My other big takeaway from this, the other thing that I make of this is if we kind of follow that to its logical endpoint, if we're hiring, if there's going to be a new president and I'm Mat Ishbia and I'm making a hire of a president where we're going to have the president be involved in the basketball, well, that still leaves a little bit of a void on the business side. And so what I'm assuming is that Mat Ishbia is going to fill some of that void himself. Okay? It feels to me like if that's the route that they're going from a CEO standpoint, then a lot of the business decisions, whether it's the arena, whether it's, hiring, whether it's communication strategy, marketing, partnerships like footprint, finance stuff, a G League team, maybe a lot of those things are going to be directly overseen by Ishbia, because you don't hire a 33-year-old guy who obviously has his eyes toward being involved in the front office if you're going to tell him, all right, I really want you to make sure that the food offerings in the concourse are really good, right? That's not probably the approach you would have. And so I think I could see a lot of those decisions that might have been, Rowley first and foremost in the past. They might not be Bartelstein first and foremost now. They might be Ishbia first and foremost because of all of that. The last thing, and this is not new, but it's just another kind of indication that this hire, this is another indication of, is Ishbia is well connected in basketball. Like, did you know that Mat Ishbia knew a big-time NBA agent's son really well? I mean, I guess if you told me it was Detroit, I might have started to think a little bit deeper on it, because obviously that's Ishbia's hometown right now. But that would not have been my guess for president and CEO of the team. I would have guessed, somebody from his life and mortgage, maybe a guy in the NBA already, who's already a president, or somebody, a senior vice president, an executive vice president type, well-established, the business equivalent of a Sam Presti, because that's a name we've heard, obviously, on the basketball side. That's what I would have guessed. Josh Bartelstein, the one who got hired here, is not exactly that. He might be an up-and-comer, might be a hotshot, whatever, but he's far from, like, the big guy that you go out and you get the big fish type of thing. So really this shows me Ishbia did his homework. He knew the types of people that in the NBA, in basketball, that he was going to want to target. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that. I wouldn't be surprised if there's advisors, if there's, positions we might not even be thinking of, people that you can make up a title for anybody. You don't have to even slot it into anything realistic, Speaking of Presti, if you look at the front office titles for the Thunder, they're all hilarious. It's like the most sophisticated, kind of ridiculous stuff you could imagine. So I think we will continue to see that. I think it could pay off. I think it is a good thing to have. Again, you want the people running a business to empower the decision makers to do their job. And I've been trying to track that even for you guys, right? Of all this credit that's being heaped on Ishbia, and me trying to go out there and show you that when Ishbia actually gets a chance to speak for himself, he has been very pointed in saying, no, Jones is doing his job, Monty's doing his job, and that's why things are working. This is going to be the first time that Ishbia gets a chance to really impact these things. Does Bartelstein become a mouthpiece for Ishbia? Does he have his own ideas? How does that collision and collaboration all sort of play out? And then what role does Ishbia take on from there, and who are the next people that he puts into place? That's kind of where we are, but this is a big deal. This is the one position that the Suns knew needed to be filled. It is arguably the biggest, most important position outside of the owner that there is. I guess maybe star player is up there, and then this is it. In most organizations, the president is going to have more overall power than even the GM would. And so that's really what we're getting here. A young guy, an established, connected young guy, seems to have a friendship with Ishbia, and we'll see where that takes us. But a lot of the dominoes are going to start to fall. I geek out about this stuff. I hope you guys care. I hope I make you care by talking about it in a way that is not boring, but we'll see. Let me know, I guess, in the comments. But that'll wrap us up for today, guys. Tomorrow, we will get you ready for Thunder Suns. We will talk about whatever news comes down. Maybe break down some of the stats of what these first 3 games have looked like. Plenty to talk about. Hit follow or subscribe. Get the show in your feed every single Monday through Friday. We'll have a game recap after Suns Thunder. We'll have Aaron Edwards to close out the week. All the fun stuff you know and love about the show is not going anywhere. Just keep it there. Support. Do your thing. In the meantime, go make Locked On NBA your second listen. Catch up on everything going on around the association. That show available on all podcast platforms as well. And I will catch you all tomorrow.